Okay. Yes, and it's called apbio. Yeah. All right. So somebody remind me of what types of viruses exist. Basically, we've got two categories of viruses, and which category or which type of virus or which life cycle are we particularly interested in? So Emma, give us our two types.
Okay, lytic and then lysogenic.
Lytic and lysogenic.
Oh,
lytic and lysogenic. And Katie, which one are we particularly interested in?
Lysogenic.
The lysogenic. And the reason why is because lysogenic viruses, they do not turn the host into a virus-making machine. Instead, they do what?
They're like good for like some like manipulation.
Emma? Yes.
Inject their information in this data.
They incorporate their genome into the host genome. And so provides a great mechanism. It provides a great mechanism for genetic engineering, for genetic modification. Excellent. So we also had a chapter where we talked about biotechnology, and we basically said there's two main ways we manipulate the genome, and what are those two main ways? Yeah, Lydia. So cloning and polymerase chain reaction are two mechanisms of the same modification, and that's making millions of copies of a particular portion. And the other big thing that we can do with the genome is to measure the expression of genes, right? Do you remember that? So we can make millions of copies of a particular portion of the genome to do, maybe to sequence it, or just to get to understand it better. But then we can also determine the levels of gene expression. And how do we do that? What are our mechanisms for determining level of gene expression? Carrie?
Look for specific proteins.
Look for specific proteins. Because if a protein is present, the gene for that protein is being expressed. Trinity. Look for a specific RNA. Good. All right. Then, right before we left for break, we went over bacteria, and then we went over fruiting plants for a bit. We did not quite get through fruiting plants, and I believe that those chapters were... I almost didn't get the title of chapter 39, which is what we're going to cover today, but I have the slides up, and so I just went back to the beginning. So on the Thursday before break, we went over bacteria, and then we went over fruiting plants. And when we were talking about bacteria, one of the things we talked about is one of the reasons bacteria are so successful is because there are so many mechanisms in which they can change. They're very genetically flexible, or the rates of genetic recombination are very high. And so genetic recombination in humans happens by crossing over, right? Where the two versions of your chromosome 1 will exchange information. But recombination in bacteria happens under three mechanisms. And what are those three mechanisms? Mechanism number 1, conjugation, where one bacterium transfers genetic material to a second, right? Do you remember that? It is the bacterial version of sexual reproduction.
Oh, I see it.
Transduction, and how does transduction provide recombination, Isa?
Okay.
Well, thank you, Isa. The virus, a lysogenic virus, injects material into the bacterium, transforming its genome. And then the last one, which we've talked about now several times, is, Emma? Transformation. And here, what happens? Katie?
You put it in a pool of like genetic stuff and it drinks it up.
The bacterium drinks up DNA in the foreign environment. Just loves it. All right, so why are flowering plants so successful? Isa.
They do not require water for reproduction.
They do not require water for reproduction. Emma.
Like animals animals spread their seeds everywhere?
Animals spread their seeds and animals spread their pollen, which are the male gametes. So both the sexual reproduction and the dispersal are both performed by animals.
And they don't need wind.
They don't need wind because animals do a wonderful job. And how do these flowering plants, somebody remind me please, how do these flowering plants attract animals to actually carry their pollen to another individual? Emma?
Through their scent.
Through their scent? Yeah, partially. But the scent from what structure?
Oh.
What do we call them? What do we call these plants?
Haploid to the sperm.
We call them angiosperms, which, what's the common name for these? Because angiosperms, that's a very technical term. Flowering plants. So what structure on the plant?
Flowers.
Flowers.
Beauty is
Wow.
more important than anything.
So the flowers attract animals because flowers are full of what?
Pollen.
Pollen, yes, but they're
Color.
also full of nectar. And nectar is an energy-dense material. Yeah.
What's the difference between
Between
pollen?
So pollen are the male gametophytes. So pollen are individual grains, and you can eat the pollen.
I got it all over my legs yesterday.
So pollen is made up of a number of different complex organic molecules, and inside of the pollen grains is the male gamete, the
So you're
sperm.
saying when the flowers, because you know how they can be like female or male?
Flowers are almost always male and female.
Because they can produce asexual.
Yes, and a single flower can usually self-fertilize. So have you ever had strawberry plants in your backyard?
No.
That's how
So you plant some strawberries and they flower, and then all of a sudden all of the flowers change into strawberries. And you're like, how did on earth did that happen? There weren't any insects bringing pollen from another strawberry bush over to my strawberry bushes, and it's because the flowers self-fertilize. Pollen will drop out of that flower into the female structure. So the middle of the flower is called the ovule, and that's where the female gametophyte is. And the female gametophyte makes female gametes, makes ova, eggs. And then the male gametophyte is the pollen grain, and it's made in like Antheridia. And then they're typically, so when you look at a flower, have you looked at the middle of a flower and how there's like
the yellow.
there,
Like
well, it depends. Yeah, there's usually a lot of yellow there. That's the pollen. But in the middle of the flower, there's usually like a cavity, and then surrounding that, there's usually these long projections. The long projections at the very end of that typically is where you make the pollen grains. That's where the male gametophytes are, and then so the pollen can fall into the female structure of the flower and self-fertilize.
It's the male
The male gametophyte
of the flower. So
is the pollen.
So it's male.
The pollen is the
It's
male.
making that, and then
Yeah.
what is the female portion making?
Ova,
Oh.
eggs.
I
Yeah.
don't know what it is,
Yeah.
The male part.
Yep.
bro.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that.
they have something equivalent though to a penis, and we'll talk about that.
No
today.
way.
Yeah, well, you form a pollen tube that will carry sperm into the ovum. Yeah. Anyways,
Is it whole life?
Does it have a
so a plant equivalent. All right. Let's see. Okay, males. Oh yeah. So the whole purpose of cross-pollinating, where the pollen from one plant will fertilize a flower from a second plant, is just to increase genetic variation. Because if you self-fertilize, you're going to make offspring that are almost genetically identical to you. Okay? And so, if you want to be successful, you typically need to have offspring that are a little bit different than you are, and have the potential to survive maybe better than you. But it's a risk, because you can have offspring that survive worse than you do. But anyways, plants produce lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of seeds, lots of offspring. Okay, so flowers also have nectar, and nectar is a sugar-rich material that a lot of animals love. And as they come to get the nectar, to drink it up, they will take pollen and spread that to the flower on another tree when they go to drink nectar from another tree or another plant. Alright? Let's see. And then, of course, the seeds of an angiosperm are dispersed by animals because animals come to these fruiting plants to eat what? fruit. Sometimes the flowers, but oftentimes the fruit. And when you eat the entire fruit, you typically do not digest the seeds, and so you will poop the seeds out somewhere else. And so the offspring of those flowering plants are not competing with the parent.
So do most plants grow from seeds that have been pooped out somewhere else?
A lot of flowering plants, yes. And most plants are flowering plants. You know, I guess it is a little bit nasty, but coffee comes from like a cherry. The coffee is the seed of a cherry. And so we get this and we dry them out and you're left with just the seed, and then that's, we'll grind it up and then, run really hot water over it and it'll, pull out all the wonderful goodness. But you have types of coffee in some places called coffee luwak or other types of things where what they'll do is they'll process those seeds first. And so because they are on a cherry, animals will eat them and then they'll poop out the seeds. And they'll use those seeds to make coffee from. Only those that have passed through the intestinal tract.
Pooped out seeds.
Yeah.
This is why I don't drink coffee.
And so there are groups right now that are actually, so it makes a chemically different coffee, and it's supposed to be really good. I've tried it, and it's okay. I mean, I like coffee, I enjoy coffee. Maybe a little bit too much, but I don't have like a refined palate for detecting different. To me, it just tasted like coffee. Like it tasted like good coffee. Like obviously, when you drink bad coffee, you're like, wow, that's bad coffee. But like if it's good coffee, I can't tell the difference between one good coffee and another. Like some people, they can taste the difference in the individual Skittles. They all just taste like Skittles to me,
Really? They're definitely different.
They are definitely different. To me, they just all taste great.
That's Max.
Isa. Sorry, real quick. So there are groups right now that aren't just doing this, like collecting these after animals poop them, like they're deliberately feeding them to animals, and a lot of them. So there are groups that are doing this with elephants right now, because elephants, as you can probably imagine, can eat a lot of those cherries, and then you get elephant coffee. So, Isa,
Okay,
yeah.
so do trees grow from one seed, or does it take
Yes.
multiple seeds?
Usually one seed.
Because I know like when you get like those little packets of like seeds at the store.
Yeah, and that's because most of them won't grow properly.
Oh, so what if like a couple of them grow together? Is that bad?
No, I mean it happens, and you can see it sometimes if you look. If you go to a place that has a lot of trees, sometimes you'll see where it actually was two separate individuals that both grew out, and then they kind of intertwined.
So one tiny little seed can make a big tree.
Oh yeah.
That's
Oh
crazy.
yeah. You bet. Trinity.
So Emma just
Oh my
told
gosh.
me. Emma just told me about elephant poop. She said it's very rich in moisture and if you need water.
Yes, so like
First
if you're
time
ever
I
lost,
read it, you drink
if
from
you're
it.
ever lost and you need water, you can
No, you
No,
squeeze
you
the water
squeeze
out.
it and
Oh my god.
I mean they
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
I will never let myself.
I don't know about all that. Yeah. Okay.
No, the life ain't worth that.
Emma.
May I ask an off-topic question about biology? As how do oysters grow? Please.
Sure.
Okay, this is probably stupid, but like, why does why does the fridge keep food good? Like, what is?
It just inhibits bacterial growth.
Oh, okay.
So it's not inhibiting colonization by bacteria, but it inhibits bacterial growth.
Okay.
And so, and that's why things don't stay good forever in the refrigerator. They still go bad because the bacteria are still growing. They're just not growing as quickly. Tori.
So I have a question about like the exams and the AP exams. Like, can I ask that now or like
Sure.
Okay, so I know like in the past exams, like if we all get the same wrong answer, you only minus us.
Oh, I stopped doing that a long time ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, once we started taking full-length AP exams from actual old AP exams, I stopped doing that.
Oh, so we're
And
learning all of it.
and started grading it according to the rules of the AP exam.
Okay, because I was kind of worried that like what we're getting score-wise now, like when we take AP exam, we would like.
No, what you're getting score-wise right now is actually a little bit stricter than what you would do on the AP exam.
Okay, because I was worried that like we're still getting minus half, and then maybe like we take the exam and be completely.
No, because borderline scores, I tend to go with the lower score.
Oh,
So like if you've got a score that some years would be a 4, some years would be a 3, I always give you a 3. And if you get a score that some years would be a 3, but some years would be a 2, I give you a 2. And if you get a score that some years would be a 4, some years would be a 5, I give you a 4. So I've been grading conservatively.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay, so something that you find very commonly in angiosperms is a process that's called double fertilization.
Oh, we
Is this still chapter 38?
This is chapter 38. We started this, we didn't finish it. We started this, but we didn't finish it. Okay,
We did 2 points.
so here's a third. Okay, we need to make this products. So the products of meiosis, and I know we haven't talked about meiosis in several weeks, and I understand that knowledge has a half-life, and if we don't see something, you probably don't remember it. But hopefully you may, or hopefully you do. And what are the products of meiosis? So the products of meiosis. Mitosis takes one parent cell, and the products are 2 genetically identical daughter cells. But meiosis doesn't work that way. Emma?
Is it like 4 cells with half the?
It is 4 haploid, genetically distinct cells. That is the product of meiosis. You're like, how does this connect to double fertilization? I'm glad you asked. Okay, we will make this connection. So the products of meiosis are 4 haploid, genetically distinct cells. In oogenesis, which we haven't seen this term in a while, somebody either reason through what this term means or recall what this term means. Oogenesis. So it's look at this. Note the structure here. This is a subpoint of products of meiosis, and you know that these haploid genetically distinct cells, they are gametes, right? You know this? You know this, right? These haploid genetically distinct cells, they are gametes, either sperm or ova. So oogenesis is what?
Oh, a female.
Yeah, the development of female gametes. So in oogenesis, okay, so our products of meiosis are 4 haploid genetically distinct cells. In oogenesis,
that's weird.
we have one huge ovum. Now it is still a haploid cell, but it's huge or huge. Right? Which is even bigger than huge. It's so big there was no room for the H, right?
My dad says huge like that.
My dad says now everything that begins with the letter of H as a silent H. Everything. Human, humid, huge. Except for things that it's supposed to be silent, like hour, he says hower. He's just very confused. Herb. Oh, I say herb.
You say herb?
No, I say herb.
Oh.
Herb. I don't even. I knew a guy named Herb, and I wouldn't call him Herb. I called him Herb. So, and he's like, it's short for Herbert, and I said, I don't care. Herb. You know, change your name if you don't want to be called Herb. You know, Tori.
Okay, so what is like the process of oogenesis?
It's just meiosis.
It's just part of meiosis?
No, it's meiosis in germ cells that will develop into female gametes. So then you have meiosis in germ cells that would develop into the male gametes, the sperm, and that's called spermatogenesis.
So that goes to female.
Yes. So in oogenesis, we have one huge ovum and 3 small, what are called polocytes. Sometimes you'll see these referred to as polar cells or something else. I like to call them polocytes because I like to maintain that root site. That root site means cell. Okay? And so in oogenesis, we still develop 4 haploid genetically distinct cells. Of those 4, 1 is a huge ovum, the egg. And then 3 are really small polocytes. Okay? That just, they get very little of the cytoplasm during meiosis. You get an uneven distribution of cytoplasm, an even distribution of gametes, but an uneven distribution of cytoplasm, okay? And we're like, cool, but Dr. Eagle, I still don't see how this connects back to double fertilization. Except, what were your 2 points about double fertilization from Thursday, what would that have been? Thursday, March 17th?
I don't know.
Was that the date?
Yeah.
Okay, but give me that point, Trinity. You're right on point with that one.
One sperm fertilizes the ovum, and then a second sperm fertilizes a oocyte.
Oh my goodness! So in most organisms, when you have sexual reproduction, one sperm fertilizes the ovum, and that's it. The polocytes, the only involvement they may have is to protect the ovum as it moves through the fallopian tube. Other than that, they don't do anything. But in angiosperms, one of the sperms from the pollen grain actually fertilizes one of these polocytes. Okay? So you have that in your notes? What was your other point in there?
There's only 2.
Oh, okay.
And then that
Oh, so the one of them was one sperm fertilizes. Oh,
And the second one was a
why wouldn't I have done that as a single point? Anyways, okay, so you have that point already. One sperm fertilizes the ovum, a second sperm fertilizes the polocyte. And then the last point that we need to make is this. The fertilized polocyte becomes what we call the endosperm. Oh, I'm running out of space. And I can't write on this poster. I don't think it'll erase. Oh, it totally does. I can write on that poster in future classes. Oh gosh, it doesn't fully erase. That's a good poster too. Oh man. Endosperm. So the fertilized polocyte becomes endosperm. So that's SPE and then RN, but it got all messy. I'm sorry. You're like, Dr. Ringo, don't apologize, just do better.
Yeah.
I know I have these conversations with my kids all the time. Like, I don't want apologies, I just want you to not mess up, you know?
This is not hard.
No, I don't want them to be perfect. I just don't want them to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, you know? I mean, is that so much to ask? Apparently. Oh man, you guys would love my kids. They're so much fun. They were on spring break the last 2 weeks. Yeah, they have a 2-week long spring break, which I think is a terrible idea. As a teacher, I would hate that. I'd be like, let's do one and finish earlier and have a longer summer. But anyways, it's not up to me. I don't teach in that district. Nor will I ever. Anyways, so the fertilized polocyte becomes the endosperm, and you're like, what does that mean? The endosperm is what nourishes the embryo, the actual fertilized ovum, until the plant can grow and start going through photosynthesis. The endosperm nourishes that embryo. And you're like, wow, this is so cool. This is so cool because this allows flowering plants to have their seeds stay dormant for a while. Like, you see all these poppies that are blowing up now? Some of these have been dormant for years, maybe even decades, that the endosperm has been nourishing the embryo in the seed until conditions are right for the embryo to grow, and then boom, you've got yourself a poppy. You know? A poppy.
That's such a cool word.
Okay?
You're right.
Any questions about this? Do you understand the value of this?
Yes.
That your structure that nourishes the embryo is made by a second fertilization event. So your pollen grain will form a pollen tube, which the sperm will travel down to get to the ovum, and one sperm fertilizes the ovum, a second sperm fertilizes a polocyte, develops the endosperm. Is that wonderful? That's just wonderful, right? Any questions about this? Katie.
Okay, so it seems like the fertilized point should be like a what I don't understand the title of products of meiosis. Like how so the plant goes through meiosis and those are the things that happen. Like
Yeah, this is what we make. This is what we make as a product of meiosis in all organisms. And all organisms as a product of meiosis, when you're making female gametes, is you get a large ovum and then 3 small polocytes. And then, so would you feel better if I moved this out?
yeah.
Okay.
I was just wondering because I was confused. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. That's probably better structurally.
Why would you?
Because it's now taking something of here and then putting it as a separate statement. It's legit. I mean, it's a legitimate concern. Okay? Alright. No questions about this? There's one more thing we need to talk about with flowering plants.
Okay.
Now that's it.
Cool.
I mean, for what you need to know for the AP exam, not what you need to know for the rest of your life. But listen, my goal for this class is to make you critical thinkers and help you to do well on the AP exam. I can't prepare you for the rest of your life. It's too big. It's too big for one person. Michelle.
What is polocyte?
Polocyte? It's just one of the cells that's made when you do meiosis and you don't distribute the cytoplasm evenly in your cell divisions. Okay, no questions? Because this is going to disappear. Going once, going twice, and it's gone. Now I'm going to give you some terms that you haven't seen in a while. Some of you may have never seen them. So, many of you have, but it's been a while. Isn't it so much fun? Isn't this fun?
Yeah.
Isn't this fun? Oh, you love this.
I'm glad that this was a first class back.
Yeah, it's like a warm-up.
You know, I wanted to thank you all. Oh wait, I'll tell you this during the break. Never mind. Forget that I thanked you for anything at this point. Okay.
Right now, he does not like this.
Monocot versus monocot versus dicot. You've seen these terms before, many of you, but you have probably forgotten.
Is this still chapter 38?
Oh, it is. You bet it is. Which is angiosperms and angiosperm reproduction and biotechnology. Okay, monocot versus dicot. Okay, here's what I want you to write. Look at this. Look at this, everybody. Embryo, which in parentheses, this is the fertilized ovum. But you all know that because that's what the embryo is in all sexually reproducing organisms, right? It's a fertilized ovum. Yes?
Yes.
So the embryo, the fertilized ovum, grows some embryonic leaves.
Is this under monocot?
Yes.
Or dicot?
It's under both.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't got to the, I mean, maybe I should have done a Venn diagram and put this in the middle with the overlap.
Oh, please no.
Wow.
That would have been fun.
Wow. That's like a fundamental tool of logic. Why would you not?
They're too messy.
Yeah, that looks bad.
It's really hard to write inside of circles.
I'll give you that.
Okay, but
Yeah, I'll give you that.
what if it was like
Okay, so the embryo grows some embryonic leaves. These leaves are inside the seed. Whoa, S-E-E-D, not S-E-A-D. What is that? Inside the seed, and these embryonic leaves are called, somebody? Somebody, what are these embryonic seeds called? Or the embryonic leaves?
Inside of the seed.
Wait,
You feel me? You feel me? You feel me?
The cotyledon.
Oh, silly us.
You remember this, don't you? Oh, it's all coming back.
Is this also?
It's all coming back. It's like, Dr. Engel, I haven't ridden a bike in a long time. I don't know if I can do it anymore. And then you get on there and you're riding that bike. Big old smile on your face.
Did we learn this year?
No. No. I don't think so. I don't think we did this year.
In this class, I mean.
Okay. So, these embryonic leaves, they're inside the seed, and it's called the cotyledon. Okay? Now, monocots, look at this. Now what I'm going to do, structurally, is I'm going to place something over on the left. That's going to be for monocot. Okay? Yes? And then I'm going to place something over on the right, and that's going to be for dicot. Okay?
Got it.
And then also, I'm going to do this. Instead of using just like a little dash, I'm going to do M, and over on the left, that's a monocot. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Unsplit cotyledon. Cotyledon.
It's like something they sell at IKEA.
And then look at this.
It's like a side table or something.
No, it wouldn't be a side table. I mean, maybe it would be because this is like the leaf, the embryonic leaf growing off the embryo. I think it'd be more like a kid's bed. Or do you know what it would be? You know what it'd be? No, here's exactly what it would be. It'd be the railing that you put on a bunk bed so the kid doesn't roll off. That would be the cotyledon.
Like more, you know.
Cotyledon. So this, it has a split cotyledon. Okay? Look at this. Monocot. Mono means one. Cot, cotyledon. It's unsplit. It's a single leaf. Dicot, two cotyledons. It's got a split cotyledon. So if I were to show you any seed in the entire world, you would have you don't need to have any idea of what it came from. And you could tell whether it was a monocot or a dicot by the presence of the cotyledon and whether it is split or it is unsplit. You'd have to open up the seed. You'd have to open up the seed. Oh my goodness. The yodeling? Okay. Alright, I want to show you something. I want to show you something. I want to show you your powers of deduction. Does everybody have this? Does everybody have the information on the cotyledon? Can I erase it? Hey everyone.
Yeah, take it off. Your hands are so dry. You need some lotion, my guy.
Hey, get over here.
My hands get so dry.
I always have hand lotion. Oh, honey.
I'll take them.
No, put in the bomb. Their hands off. Bro, come on.
Fine.
No, you're not.
No, you're not gonna get any females without it.
Y'all ever mark this girl asking all the girls skin lotion? Those Marcus, like, all of our freshman year. I miss him. I miss him a lot.
Okay. Hey everyone look at this seed. Oh no. Oh look at the seed. Look at the seed. Here's our embryo.
It's a dicot.
Here's an embryo. Here's our cotyledon. Is it split?
Oh no, it's a monocot.
It's not split, right?
I don't know.
I don't know, bro. relative to. I don't know what it would look like if it was.
I was
or what
looking
it
at the
wasn't.
small thing.
It's one what do you mean? It's one continuous structure. Does it look like it?
Monocot.
Does it fork?
Monocot.
Does it fork?
Monocot.
Unsplit one.
Have you seen other split things?
I don't know.
Okay. Have you ever seen a snake
I
tongue?
hate it though.
Yes.
It's split, right? It's forked.
Yeah.
Does this look like a snake tongue? Does it just look like a single blade?
Yes.
So is this monocot, dicot? Monocot.
Go to leave.
Totally. Oh gosh, I need that back. Dang it. I can't see it when it's up there. Okay. Pause.
Isabel.
Yes,
I
sir.
kind of hate it.
Oh, put it on the palms. You gotta put it on the back.
You gotta get it all.
You gotta get
over
it.
there. And then rub it on.
You have to do it like this.
Elbow down.
Yeah, we
Cotyledon.
This jacket doesn't roll up. It's not happening. It doesn't go past like here.
Oh, I probably gave you too much then.
No.
Yeah, there's a lot of drip.
Give some to
Here, Nick. Take some.
buddy there.
Nick, take some.
Oh yeah. You want some more fire? Take some on the left. I just got it. It's like between my fingers. That's why I don't like it. It's like slippery.
Oh, this is so perfect.
I want the nails like, you know the videos of the girl talking to her nails?
That girl, she's like, she has really long nails. She's like inspirational videos.
Oh
They're
yeah,
so
the
funny.
green one?
Yeah.
The guy like takes like hot dogs to his hand. He's like, she's so good.
Bro, I had so much Sonic costume.
Dude, Sonic is
Like
the
Sonic the Hedgehog?
Oh, like,
I was.
I getting them slushes, you know, 10-cent upgrade, you dig?
Oh yeah, I can tell.
That and Whataburger. I had so much Whataburger. Oh, and I saw Oklahoma's best
Okay.
basketball player. He was like, "Watch
Look at
Whataburger."
this.
I was like, "Break Nick, I know you."
Look at this. Okay. So look.
Bro.
Shh. When you open up a bean, you've got one blade of the cotyledon here.
Oh,
You've got a second blade of the cotyledon there. It is forked.
I don't get it.
Well, that's because you've basically split. You want to see it like really early embryonic when it first starts to split.
You have to show us one that's like similar to the monocot one.
Wait, no,
You
no,
showed us so we can see the
No, Dr.
difference.
English, stay on that picture. Dr.
remembering
English,
around your
question.
hand.
What's up?
No.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is that the inside of a bean?
Yeah.
Well, when I open the bean, it's not what I saw.
What do you see?
Not that.
Do you open beans?
It's always an invitation.
I want to see one that's like early embryonic.
I don't know.
All kinds.
Like, we don't like. Is that right? Is that right? We're gonna describe it.
Oh yeah, this one. This one will do it. Nope. Oh, they won't let us go there. Okay.
It's like a
Yeah, Isabel, why does it feel dusty?
So right here,
Hands, that's why you're Oklahoma dust.
here you've got this single blade in this leaf, this embryonic leaf, the cotyledon, and then here there's one, and there's a second right there. It has split into two. I know it's hard to see because you're far away.
Can you just zoom in?
How am I supposed to zoom in?
You literally just go like this. So we did.
Or you
Control
can go to the
plus.
corner, click on zoom, and then
Control
yeah,
plus.
side.
Control plus.
Like in the right corner.
Ah!
Go like this.
View image. On the
It won't zoom in.
click view image. That's where you're.
Dr. Engle. Dr. Engle.
Yeah, buddy.
Ew.
Control
Shut up.
plus.
Stop trying to make me face.
Oh, I have an idea.
Can you see the two cotyledons?
Oh, there we go.
Do you see it?
Now it's working.
Do you see it? It's split.
No, the dipot is green.
But how come that one doesn't look the same?
A corn, yeah, those are kind of the textbook examples.
If you can split it in half, then it should happen.
No, not necessarily. So what happens with beans is also something else. A lot of times with dicot, you get what's called a eudicot condition, where the entire endosperm gets replaced with those embryonic leaves. So then they grow and they fill up the entire space. And so that's what happens inside of a bean eventually. Yeah. 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 Yes. Okay. Yeah.
What's the difference?
After they grow, nothing really. Yeah. After they grow, nothing really. Yeah, that's a good question.
Like the difference.
Well, it's the idea there is if so Michelle asked a really good question. She said, what's the difference after they grow? Like when you have the adult plant, do you see a difference? And the answer is no. So the idea there is that this developmental difference is a real representation of the relationship. So all dicots would be more closely related to each other than they are to any monocot. And all monocots would be more closely related to each other than they are to any dicot. Okay? So it really only matters as far as organization is concerned that we can split angiosperms, which is several 100,000 described species, into two groups, monocots and dicots.
Wow.
Trinity and then Emma.
Do you say apricot or apricot?
It depends. I use both. The only time I usually say apricot is when I'm quoting a thing from when I was in high school. And they would say, well, this little skit is trying to help somebody understand something, and it asks like who put the ape in apricot, and you can't say that unless you say it apricot, but I usually say apricot.
Apricot.
I'm pretty sure.
Is it like apricot?
Like if anybody says
Yeah.
caramel,
Caramel?
Caramel.
Confirmed.
What about caramel?
It's not like what it's
That's
on.
the city.
Yeah.
It's caramel. It's like nice, pristine, like on something.
So if
It's
you
like
same species
basket
in one
robbins
meat,
is caramel.
monocot, one
Chapter 39, everyone. And listen to this. Listen to this. Chapter 39.
What's the title?
I'm going to show you right now. The title is Chapter 39.
Yep.
Whoa, imagine.
Plant
Chapter 39.
responses.
Is that it?
Nope.
It's gonna be two something.
I don't have that much room.
To internal and external
So just whatever the next word is.
signals.
That's a long title.
And then after, it is a long title. Sorry, I didn't name it. Chapter 39 is basically about how do plant cells communicate with other plant cells, and how do plant cells detect, features in their environment that they need to respond to. And chapter 40 is how do animals do that, and these are the last two really big topics. I mean, really, this is one topic, and that's communication. And this it's big. It's big. Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously animals, well, not obviously, but, like, they can communicate with, like, noises or whatever. But, like, can't they, like, understand each other?
Yes, but then you need to know how that actually happens. Sure.
Why do they communicate? They just speak it.
Well, that's what is communication. Communication. Shh. We've talked about communication twice already in this class. And you'll remember that communication, how do cells, oh, wow. Wow.
How do cells communication?
Oh. So, the definition of communication, which you will remember, is the transmission and reception of signals.
Yes.
The transmission and the reception of signals. And so what we want to do, and then we talked about cell communication, and it's been a little while since we talked about this, and so we need to talk about the different ways in which cells communicate.
Wasn't that tube thingy that sent it some places? That one.
No, definitely.
Are you talking about
the car thing.
Oh, vesicles?
Vesicles.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's part of it. But that's more for next time. Okay.
Remember the bubble that engulfs you and puts you in the Dodger Stadium?
Yes.
Dodger Stadium?
So that you can watch Russell. So you can watch Russell, Nathan, Johnson, Coltrane, Martin Jr. make his major league debut as a pitcher. Throw 10 pitches.
No, picture's not visible.
And get the Arizona Diamondbacks out 1, 2, 3. Yeah, pitcher. Yeah, it's baseball.
I mean, I maybe based on what said picture.
Okay, so cells can communicate electrically. We're gonna save that entire conversation for Wednesday. Today's Monday, right? Yeah. So we're gonna save that entire conversation for Wednesday. The other one, and this one we've talked about before. Cells also communicate chemically. Cells communicate chemically. And remember we talked about paracrine versus endocrine signals, right? Paracrine was close cells, like one cell empties some signal into the surrounding environment, the surrounding cells receive that signal, and then you had endocrine signaling, which was long distance, right? And so a cell emits a signal, secretes a signal, gets into the bloodstream, goes and basically targets everywhere. Yes, Mark.
I know one other cell communication.
What's that? Tactilely. Yep. Tactily?
That should be tactilically.
Tactily? Okay, tactily?
Is that how you spell that?
I think so.
Tactile.
Oh, no. Highly doubtful, yeah.
Highly doubtful.
I don't, we'll just say tactile.
Yeah. Well, the parallel structure is off.
Oh, I'm freaking out. Okay, everybody just relax. Okay, now in chemical communication, there are two parts of it. And you'll remember this because we've talked about it before. The cell needs to receive the signal, and it uses some kind of receptor to do that, right? And we talked about receptor tyrosine kinases. We talked about G-dependent receptors, right? And y'all did, when I was gone a day, you had chapel maybe? And then you came back and you made figures out of paper of receptors, and then you did that worksheet. Do y'all remember? You didn't need me here, but I wasn't here.
And Katie hooked it up, and Tori revived it.
And so basically the cell has to receive the signal. It does that with some kind of receptor. Then that signal needs to be translated. We call that transduction, right? Where that signal is transduced into an internal signal. And then the cell responds in some way. Okay? The cell responds in some way. And how might a cell respond? Somebody remind me, and I know we haven't done this in a while, but somebody remind me of how a cell might respond. Emma.
It changes.
It changes. And how does a cell change? What does the work of a cell? Of all of our biomolecules, carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, proteins are doing the work of the cell. Nicely done. And now we've learned enough that we know how the cells make proteins. How do cells make proteins? Someone?
I got it.
Emma? Through amino acids, yes.
DNA to RNA.
DNA to RNA to protein, yes?
Yes.
DNA to RNA, what is that process called?
Translation.
Transcription. When the code is transcribed as RNA. RNA to protein is called translation, because now you're changing the language using the genetic code, right? Right? Y'all remember this? So if a cell is going to respond to some signal, what does it need to do? If it's going to change, Emma, in response to that signal, what does it need to do? How does the cell change what it does? It needs to make some new proteins that it hasn't made before. So the part of that response might be to transcribe an RNA that wasn't transcribed, right? So that you can have an RNA that can be translated into a new protein, yes? Or we could change the way that protein is, or the polypeptide is modified after translation. Okay?
Because remember, we have these post-translational modifications where that protein has to be folded, maybe portions will get cut off, right? Do you remember talking about all this? It's all together. Okay? Everything in this class, it's all related. It's all living forms. It's all life. Okay? So you can't forget anything. But I won't let you, because we're going to have a period coming up short where all we're going to do is go back. Go back over old materials and in context of actual AP exam questions. You're going to love it. And you're going to be empowered. Yeah.
Are there only 2 chapters left?
I think there are 2 full chapters and then some small pieces. Yeah. That's a good question. Okay? Does this make sense? Do you remember this? You need to receive the signal using some kind of a receptor. You need to transduce that signal, which changes the language of it to something that works inside the cell. It also amplifies the signal, right? Remember talking about this? Yes, yes, yes. And then the cell needs to respond by either transcribing something new or modifying these RNAs or the polypeptides in a novel way. Okay? All right, and now we need to start talking about, okay, well, what does this actually mean for plants? What that means is if a plant cell is going to start to do something new, like grow in response to something, it's going to need to receive some signal using a receptor. It's going to have to transduce that signal, and then it's going to have to execute some cell response. Either transcribe something new, or translate, or modify your transcript or your polypeptide in a way that it hasn't been modified before. Okay? And so, what I want to do now is I want to give you some general plant hormones that are signals that plant cells will bind, that will transduce, and then execute some response to. Okay? So I'm going to give you, I think there are 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, there are 5 of them. Wow, that's way better than 7. It's way easier than 7. So I'm going to give you 5 of these hormones, things that, again, plant cells will bind, and then will transduce a signal and execute some response. And then we're going to think critically about what kind of external stimuli are plants going to be influenced by. All right? Okay? All right. May I erase this? Okay. And everyone, if you you don't like looking at the white background right now, the general plant hormones, they're up on the screen.
Could you
Pretty nifty.
your
I will get a wireless camera.
you just face towards the board if we're watching it, and from there we could just write down what you're saying, but also when you're on the board.
Yeah, I think so. But the problem is having the camera right here, you lose out on a lot of the board. But if I mounted a camera
Just put it back there.
or right there on one of those bookshelves, it'd be perfect. Because then while you're watching it, you could zoom in, you know. Yeah. You can see
Can I
everything
talk?
that's going on. Can you talk?
Through the camera. Through the camera.
I don't know what's happening. Okay.
He means recorded for athletes. That wouldn't be live.
We could do it live and then just
We could absolutely do it live. We'd have to do it through Skype or GoToMeeting or something. Okay, so plant hormones. The first one. The first category. Auxins. Auxins. And so again, these are hormones. These are chemicals that the cell will bind with a receptor, transduce, and then execute some response. The typical cell response is cell elongation. And you see this happening when, say, the cells in the stem need to elongate against some kind of a force or in an effort to get access to some other...
They're football shape?
Yeah, but plant cells are usually more cuboidal, so they become from being more squarish to more rectangular.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Cuboidal?
Cube cereal box.
Oh gosh.
Is it elongation?
Oh my gosh.
Elongation.
elongation.
You know, we should do that thing where you mess up all the words.
Yeah, but it's not with spelling.
Never was.
Because if it's with, I'll do it if you also want to do it with spelling, but then I need to start taking points away for you when you misspell
Oh,
something.
No.
Because we've got to be consistent and we've got to be fair.
I connect letters.
Definitely not for Emma.
Okay? And so the next category, Gibberellins. Gibberellins. And here you will have cell elongation plus division. Cell elongation and cell division. And so these are really going to contribute to a great deal of plant growth. These gibberellins. These are big time growth factors. These are some of the things like, I don't know, let's say you want this plant to produce huge fruit. Or better yet, huge
This
fruit.
is watermelon.
Huge. So what you do is you give these plants a lot of these gibberellins. And they'll grow larger fruits. Yeah, well, it is, except for it's physiologically modified. So the plants aren't modified genetically at all. You're physiologically modifying them by giving them a growth hormone. It's like when you give chickens growth hormones because you want these chickens to be pumped.
Is that right now? Is my nose like jacked?
Well, I mean, you know, some of those growth hormones you're probably going to consume and maybe aggregate, and it might influence how you grow. A lot of what it does is it just means that, like, the chicken may look a lot bigger, but it's not really any more calories, you know. But it might be. It might be. And then sometimes what they'll do is they'll just they'll inject it with water so it increases the weight, you know, so you feel like you're getting a better deal because you're like, man, this chicken weighs 4.5 pounds. This one only weighs 4 pounds. Whoa. And it's the same price. Yeah, but the difference is water. No big deal. Okay. I want a thick chicken. I don't want to listen. I don't want to eat a whole chicken and still be hungry. Like, if you're gonna eat a whole chicken
You should be full.
and not allow anyone else to eat some of that chicken, you should be full. Okay.
Thick chickens.
I can eat like 2 pieces
Alright,
of
Nick.
chicken.
The next one, cytokinins. Cytokinins.
And
And the
What?
cytokinins. Sorry, that looks kind of like an X and a K. And this is cell division.
keep them straight.
The main response to this is cell division. Cell division, which is going to equate to plant growth.
Yeah, right there.
Isn't that the same thing as meiosis?
Mitosis. Most of this would be mitosis and not meiosis, because meiosis is just for making the gametes. Oh, abscisic.
Everything must be complete.
The next one, number 4, abscisic acid. Abscisic acid. And the main response to this
I like that word.
is abscission. Is that 2 C's or 1? Oh, abscission. The main response to this is abscission. Anyone know what that term is?
No.
Absent.
I'm gonna guess cut,
Like a
yeah.
hole or something?
It means to lose the leaves.
Absent.
Okay.
Abscission is to lose the leaves. So this is a main hormone that's going to be circulating through trees in the fall. And plants in the fall? Yeah.
So like when you have an abscess and you lose it, like that kind of thing.
Different.
Well, no, I know, but like to help us like remember, you know.
Oh, if that's, yeah, if you want to do that.
Put her there.
And then the last one. Ethylene.
Up here.
Ethylene. Ethylene. And the main plant response to this is fruit ripening. The main plant response to this is fruit ripening. So now, should you be given any exam on the AP exam, any question on the AP exam? Wow, today is not a great day for me, and this is not good because I have 4 more classes to teach today. It is not boding well. Okay. So, if you're given a question on the AP exam that references any of these 5 materials, you should immediately think we are dealing with plant cell signaling. Okay? And so this question is going to have something to do with the reception of a signal using a receptor, the transduction of that signal using some kind of transduction pathway, and then some cellular response using transcribing something you've never transcribed before, or modifying a protein in a unique way. For mocking me.
Sorry.
I'll give you your pen back. I'm bigger than that. Alright? Okay. Shh. Last thing from chapter 39. Listen, I want you to know this. If you go and you open up your textbook to chapter 39, there's a lot in there. There's a lot. The thing is, we don't need all of that for the AP exam. The AP exam here that you need from the material you need from chapter 39 to prepare for the AP exam is to remind yourself that plants are living organisms. And as living organisms, as multicellular living organisms, they need to be able to communicate. Cells have to communicate. And they communicate in similar ways to animals, but with plant-specific hormones. Okay? So you may have a question on the AP exam that says something like this. I wouldn't put it past the writers of the exam to have a question like this. Which of the following hormones is most likely going to increase plant size?
Oh, definitely.
Cytokinins.
So it'd be one of these 2 here, Gibberellins or Cytokinins. Okay? One of those 2 is going to be the most likely to contribute to increased cell division and increased plant cell growth. Okay? Alright? Okay. Yeah. Abscission is the loss of leaves. When plants get rid of their leaves in the fall, that's called abscission.
Science experiment, ready?
Just the cells growing. Yeah. Individual cells growing. Okay. Okay. The last thing we need to do from chapter 39 is this. I need you to take exactly 1 minute. Exactly 1 minute. I need you to talk to those around you, and I need you to come up with one environmental, that means outside of the plant, one environmental stimulus that's going to impact a plant in a significant way. One environmental stimulus. You have 60 seconds, starting not yet, now.
No, I was thinking something. We can get more creative. Okay, so that's about it.
Please be specific with your environmental stimulus.
No!
Weather.
What'd you say? Wanna do this right now? Rain, snow, seasons, children? Children. Yeah, toddlers.
I like his hair.
Whoa, where'd you go?
Really?
Yeah, ooh, the voice, that was... I mean, I've noticed that plants, my spring break feel like didn't happen. I wasn't like at home. I was like...
Alright, time's up. Time's up. What do we got? Isa. Climate,
Weather.
that's very general. Emma.
Okay, well, I think it depends on like the plant. like the rain can help the plant, you know,
Okay.
or not help it.
Yeah.
And same with dry weather.
Yeah. What is the stimulus with rain though?
Weather.
Moisture.
Moisture. Okay, moisture is a big one, but it's not one of the 3 big ones, so it's not going to make my list. I know. Mark.
Like the environment, like stuff like animals and like,
Yes, but be more specific.
the bee, like pollinators.
Okay. Predation. Okay. Predation. We would call it herbivory since they're plants. But yeah, I mean actually feeding on them. It's not one of my big 3. This isn't going well.
Sunlight.
Sunlight! Sunlight, not only is that the big 3, but that's the number 1 answer. Sunlight.
Number 1 answer. Okay, why do you say it?
Sunlight. That is one of the big 3. And what does a plant do in response to sunlight?
Or die.
Grows towards.
Sunlight 2 words.
Oh yeah.
I did make sunlight 2 words. Why? Because I felt like it. It's my board. Oh, it's my marker.
It's changing.
I'll do what I want. I'll change the English language. Okay. So when you've got a potted plant, wow, you got all rowdy. Okay, when you've got a potted plant sitting by a window, the plant grows towards the light.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like I'm a dog.
The cells on the side of the plant that are not getting very much light grow very rapidly. And so what it does is it bends the plant towards the light.
I plan to get out.
Okay? So 3 big stimuli. Sunlight.
Use that It's so great.
They grow towards sunlight. We've got 2 more. Big 3.
Weather.
Soil.
Nope.
Fertilization. Reproduction. Oh, photosynthesis. Back to
Gravity.
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 That's exactly what I said.
Gravity.
Gravity is like everything.
Can't believe you didn't hear me say that.
Look, boom, gravity.
And plants grow away from.
It's like,
Plants grow away from the pull of gravity. So if gravity is pulling them down towards the ground, they grow away from that pull. Hanging plants grow up, they still grow away from gravity.
oh, so I know that.
Mark.
Altitude go down.
Altitude? Altitude's gonna be 1, but it's not one of our big 3. You're never gonna get the last one. Huh? I'm guessing never. I figured you would never get these 2.
Animal effects.
Shh, but I figured you'd get this one. What are you going for, Michelle? Nope.
Activity of other living animals.
Reproduction.
It's not gonna be season. It's not gonna be
Touche.
Touch.
I was kind of right.
The last of the big 3 stimuli is touch.
Is that like when you touch a butterfly it dies? Or can't fly anymore?
What are you talking about?
I used to grab
All right.
their wings.
I thought it drives.
Oh, you were one of those?
Okay, the response to this is to grow towards, and I'm going to put in parentheses here, usually. Usually plants will grow towards a touch stimulus.
You mean touch like by a human or another plant?
Both.
Wow.
And this is why like a lot of plants will wrap around things and form vines because they're growing towards a touch stimulus. Or like 2 trees, if they come into contact, they'll grow essentially together. Yeah. Trinity.
What about like a wall like for like vines and stuff? Is that like
Yeah, they're doing the same thing. They're growing towards wherever that touch stimulus is coming from.
So if you just repeatedly touch a plant, it'll like grow towards.
Grow towards that direction wherever you touch it on. Yeah. So if you the next time you grow a potted plant from a seed, just regularly touch it only on one side of the plant, and you'll see that side of the plant will typically grow more than the other side.
So what's the exception to
hey
this?
Rick, what's this
Just
called?
usually.
There are some plants that shy away from this. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.